Hello guys, welcome back to our anime explainer. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Tales of Herding God Part 88 based on novel. So let's start. Granny Sai was attracted to the Gate of Heaven influence and the scroll. As a matter of fact, Qin Mu also didn't understand the words on it, he could only read the words on the gate. He only knew one phrase in Yudu's language, and that was Gate of Heaven influence. For this phrase, he had been almost killed by Juqian Devil King. You want to learn? I can teach you, Qin Mu said calmly. Li Qianxing's voice came from Granny Sai's mouth as he sneered, do I need you to teach? You're the cult master sacred teacher, and I'm also the cult master sacred teacher. Furthermore, I'm your senior, so where will I put my face if you teach me? Qin Mu smiled. But you don't know the true Saturn Sovereign's Earth Marquis true technique. Li Qianxing was pissed and rolled Granny's eyes flirtatiously at him. I'm the cult master sacred teacher, what's there I don't know? Qin Mu ignored him and stabilized his mind. That look was too powerful and had almost captivated him. He executed 9 heavens eye awakening skill and layers of heavens opened in his eyes. When he looked at the emperor, he only saw his ruined divine treasures that were like ruined heaven and earth. Qin Mu gave a muffled shout, and the heart of his brows suddenly split open, revealing a third eye. This eye didn't seem like a corporeal eye of the human world, but that it had come from a world of gloom. It emanated a dark and sinister that caused the light of the candle to instantly become dim. When this eye opened, the room seemed to enter another world which didn't look like the human world. Qin Mu used this eye to look at his patient, and instantly saw Emperor Yanfeng's souls, spirits, primordial spirits. He then found where the main problem lay. One cultivates primordial spirit on celestial being realm. When their vital qi fuses with the souls and spirits, they would become the primordial spirit, which was also the god that stood tall behind the strong practitioners of celestial being realm. That was the primordial spirit, vital qi and spirit. Emperor Yanfeng's primordial spirit stood on the divine bridge, looking like it wanted to cross to the god realm. Since his secret realms were crumbling, his primordial spirit, as well as his souls and spirits, were severely injured. With his souls and spirits in a mess and his primordial spirit unprotected, his 3 souls and 7 spirits were no longer whole. There was also a terrifying energy still bombarding his corporeal body, causing his soul to waver. Thus, even if Qin Mu managed to save his body, the emperor's souls and spirits wouldn't be able to remain in his body. Li Qianxing's imposing manner suddenly turned gloomy as he said resentfully, though I've never learned this eye before. Is this really the Earth Marquis true technique of great educational heavenly devil scriptures? Qin Mu closed his eyes and dispersed the form of Saturn's sovereign. He frowned as he walked to and fro while pondering. Li Qianxing held back his anger and quietly waited. Qin Mu suddenly clapped and smiled. What can I see if I only stay here? Why don't I enter the emperor's body to examine it in detail? Cult Master Li, follow me. Li Qianxing was shocked and asked suspiciously, how can you enter his body? Simple. There's a technique in great educational heavenly devil scriptures called phantom illusion technique, which hides a person in the shadow, concealing the form of the corporeal body. There's also a technique called heavenly mustard seed technique, which can shrink and expand the corporeal body. By executing both techniques together, we can shrink our body before transforming into a phantom to enter Emperor Yanfeng's body and examine his primordial spirit and divine treasures. Qin Mu took a glance at the woman nearby and said, you don't know. Li Qianxing laughed from anger and said, how would I not know? Qin Mu moved a step back and grabbed onto the woman's hand, pulling her towards Emperor Yanfeng. The two of them then executed both phantom illusion technique and heavenly mustard seed technique almost at the same time, and while they were sprinting towards Emperor Yanfeng, their bodies became smaller and smaller before turning into 2 black shadows on the floor which tunneled into the heart of Emperor Yanfeng's brows. Even though Emperor Yanfeng were frozen and his 5 senses were sealed by Qin Mu, he could still feel 2 black shadows moving around his body. Qin Mu and Li Qianxing paused when they came to his spirit embryo divine treasure. The two of them stood at the edge of it and looked ahead. Emperor Yanfeng's spirit embryo divine treasure had already been destroyed. His spirit embryo and spirit platform had crumbled, and the sky was filled with thousands of holes. An extremely disturbing crack was in one part of the sky, revealing a snow-white skull that was on the outside. There was fresh blood pouring into the spirit embryo divine treasure like a huge waterfall. Other than that, Qin Mu also saw a sword light flying to and fro in the spirit embryo divine treasure, destroying this divine treasure without any restraint. Dao Master's Dao Sword. Li Qianxing was astonished. That old Daoist is really remarkable. He had struck his sword will inside. Can you take away this sword will? Qin Mu asked. Li Qianxing chuckled. Why should I help you? Qin Mu smiled. You have seen so many true teachings of my great educational heavenly devil scriptures, so there should be reciprocation. Even if you don't help me, I can ask Granny Sai to help me tomorrow. Li Qianxing snorted and flew forward with his 10 fingers suddenly spread wide open. Instantly, threads of vital qi connected with each other and intersected to form a spatial ceiling cage. The opposite angles of the cage connected with each other to form another spatial ceiling cage within this cage. In the second one, a new one was soon formed, so on and so forth. It was literally endless. Li Qianxing threw this clean-cut ball out, and it collided with the sword will, which instantly vanished as it got sucked inside. Li Qianxing stretched his hand out to grab that cube back, then threw it up and down as he looked at Qin Mu with a pleased expression. Multiple sides spatial ceiling technique, Qin Mu exclaimed. It's indeed ingenious. You may recognize it, but you might not be able to use it. Li Qianxing laughed. Qin Mu gave a smile and executed spatial ceiling technique, without any extra trouble. My cultivation is too weak, so I can't seal Dao Master's sword will. However, I've also dipped my hands into algebra, so I know how to set up spatial seals. Only my cultivation is inferior to yours. You and I are both cult master sacred teachers. That's why what I know won't be any less than what you know. It will only be more. Li Qianxing snorted, but since the sound was so feminine, people would only find it cute instead of being disgusted by it. Qin Mu breathed heavily in his heart and transformed into a fine shadow to leave the spirit embryo divine treasure and enter the 5 elements divine treasure. In that place, there were 5 huge Buddhas sitting in the shattered sky, which replaced the stars of the 5 elements. Li Qianxing flicked his fingers, and 5 trails of devil qi transformed into 5 lotus flowers, which flew out and landed under the bodies of the 5 huge Buddhas. In an instant, they became weak and their bodies withered away as blazing devil flames ignited. The 5 huge Buddhas instantly turned into ashes. Li Qianxing sneered, "Do you know this as well?" Qin Mu said, "This is Red Lotus Devil Heart Mantra. This is my first time executing this mantra, but it won't be any inferior to yours." His vital qi transformed as he executed Red Lotus Devil Heart Mantra. With a flick of a finger, a red lotus flew out. Li Qianxing stared at it, and it was indeed Red Lotus Devil Heart Mantra. However, it was superior to his. The devil flame's red lotus that was formed by the devil qi he had flicked out earlier wasn't as pure as that of Qin Mu's red lotus karma fire. Yet because of the limitation of his cultivation, the power of Red Lotus Devil Heart Mantra Qin Mu had executed was much weaker. The two of them then went to 6 directions divine treasure, and saw that it had also been crushed. Air was leaking out from everywhere, which made this place fresh and cool. There was still half a heaven hidden here with the Buddhas and gods attacking it, shattering the 6 directions. Li Qianxing couldn't resist saying, "This emperor is hopeless, each layer of his divine treasures is worse than the previous. Even if you save him, he will be a useless person. Is there a need for you to put in so much effort?" On this journey, she had already recognized what Qin Mu, this cult master sacred teacher, was doing. Her opinion of him improved by a lot, and she felt that it wasn't worth it for him to put in so much effort in saving Emperor Yang Feng, which would become a useless person. Qin Mu shook his head. "I have to save him for Heavenly Saint cult." Li Qianxing didn't ask any more questions, and made her move to take away the remnants of Rulai's divine art in the 6 directions divine treasure. "Even though I'm no longer the sacred cult master, I wore that mantle once. I am willing to do things that are beneficial to the sacred cult," she said in a low voice. Astonished, Qin Mu nodded silently. The two of them then came to 7 stars divine treasures, and looked to where the sun and the moon should be hanging in the sky. The two had already been destroyed, and there were 2 divine swords hanging in their place. Those swords would tremble from time to time, and sword chi that filled the sky would instantly come down in all directions. Qin Mu was bewildered, and in a low voice, he said, 7 stars divine treasure, from its name there should be 7 stars. 7 stars divine treasure has a sun and a moon, the twin stars. With the addition to the 5 elements of 5 elements divine treasure, it makes it 7 stars, Li Qianxing pointed out to him. Look down and you can see the 5 elements divine treasure. Qin Mu looked down and his heart trembled slightly. Below their feet was 5 elements divine treasure, and the 5 elements together with the sun and moon here formed the 7 stars. However, Emperor Yanfeng's 5 elements divine treasure had already been destroyed, and there were shocking cracks below their feet. The sky would crumble from time to time, looking very unstable. These 2 divine treasures are connected together, so once you cultivate to 7 stars divine treasure, you can see 5 elements and 7 stars together as one. If you cultivate to celestial being realm, you can see 6 directions outside spirit embryo. 5 elements are distributed in the sky, while the sun and moon of 7 stars hang at the topmost part. These are the poles of heaven and earth. Li Qianxing explained, giving him pointers. When it comes to life and death realm, darkness would appear from the land below your feet, which is the passage to Yudu. When you reach divine bridge, there will be a divine bridge all the way to heaven. At that time, you will not be far from becoming a god. She revealed a smile, but it was a cruel one. However, at that time you will realize that the bridge leading to heaven is broken. Broken. Your whole life of cultivation, determination, and long-lasting ideals will all be useless once you reach the end of your lifespan. Everything is empty, everything is empty. Cult Master Li, calm down, Qin Mu said. Li Qianxing rolled her eyes at him in a feminine manner, and couldn't resist asking, aren't you disappointed? Qin Mu was bewildered. What's there to be disappointed about if you live your life to the fullest? Li Qianxing was stunned, but then nodded. That's why I shall live my life to the fullest, to become the most beautiful woman in the world. Qin Mu's scalp turned numb. He didn't know if it was the excitement from Granny Sai, or if it was him cultivating great educational heavenly devil scriptures that had made him dumb. They walked into Emperor Yanfeng's celestial being divine treasure, and Qin Mu finally saw how spirit embryo, 6 directions, 5 elements, and 7 stars formed the poles of heaven and earth which Li Qianxing had mentioned. Reaching life and death realm, he saw the darkness of Yudu beneath his feet. Finally, they came to the last place, divine bridge divine treasure. A divine bridge stretched across the sky and crossed life and death, sun and moon, 5 elements, 6 directions. It seemed like there was an incomparably bright and glorious heaven at the other end of the divine bridge where gods were waiting for them to move forward. Emperor Yanfeng's divine bridge, however, had already cracked in numerous places, and there were pieces crashing down from time to time, smashing straight through layers of divine treasures, and into spirit embryo divine treasure. Li Qianxing looked around. The emperor is really hopeless. He's useless, so give his skin to me. I shall be the emperor and eternal peace will belong to our heavenly saint cult. Qin Mu shook his head. You aren't cut out to be the emperor, you are only suitable to bring disaster to all living things. Li Qianxing was angry and stared at him furiously. I will become the female emperor, and I'll grant you a consort. Qin Mu rolled his eyes, showing him his white eyeballs. Li Qianxing was stunned for a moment, then suddenly chuckled. Powerful demoness. Qin Mu immediately sealed his 5 senses to prevent himself from getting affected. They swept away all the remnants of the divine arts left behind by Dao Master and Ru Lai, which gave Qin Mu an idea of how to continue treating Emperor Yanfeng. He calculated for a bit, then said, without the remnants of the divine arts, his souls and spirits can finally be stabilized. Even though the Emperor's divine treasures are crumbling, with enough spirit medicine, I can use phantom illusion technique and heavenly mustard seed technique to enter his divine treasures. If I refine the pills and medicines here, I might just be able to repair the injuries to his divine treasure. Though, He had never treated such injuries before, so he didn't have any confidence in being successful with his treatment. If there were only cracks in the divine treasures, he could still treat them, but Emperor Yanfeng's divine treasures were destroyed. Apothecary had taught him lots of medicinal knowledge, but there were no methods to treat these kinds of injuries among them. However, there were some herbs that were able to cure injuries to divine treasures, and great educational heavenly devil scriptures also had some techniques that could strengthen divine treasures. Qin Mu felt that if he could apply both of them together, there would be a chance. When the two of them left Emperor Yanfeng's divine treasures, the sky soon brightened. Granny Sai woke up while Li Qianxing fell into slumber. Qin Mu undid the heavenly devil creation technique and said, "Your Majesty, I'm going out to buy some herbs, so I might be gone for 3 to 5 days. During this period of time, don't go out of the room. There will be someone who will bring you your meals and place them at your door. When night comes, no matter what sound you hear, you can't leave the room. If someone asks you to just take a look, you can't that look." Emperor Yangfeng said weakly, "Minister Qin, to what kind of place have you brought me? It's so mysterious." Qin Mu had a grave expression. "Your Majesty, this is where my granny and Li Qianxing is staying. You just need to know that the one looking for you at night will definitely be Li Qianxing. If you look out, you will die. However, that won't be all, the entire Eternal Peace Empire will fall with you as well. If you walk out of this door, you'll surely die." Emperor Yangfeng heard his serious tone and smiled. "Don't worry, I understand. I'm not that curious of a person." Qin Mu closed the door and wielded his brush soaked with ink. His body trembled as he transformed into the human-headed and snake-bodied Saturn sovereign and circulated his magic power. When he raised his brush, he drew a gate on the door and wrote "Gate of Heaven Influence" in the language of Yudu. His body then returned back to normal, and he wrote a sentence on the ground which said, "This is the gate that's created from Saturn's sovereign's Earth Marquis, true technique from great educational heavenly devil scriptures. If you can read it, you can go in, if you can't, you shall stay outside." Qin Mu put away his brush and ink before telling Granny Sai, "Granny, don't touch this door at all cost. When you send meals to the Emperor, send them in with a bamboo pole. Never walk through this door." Granny Sai examined the words on the door and blinked. "This door?" Qin Mu also blinked, not saying anything. Granny Sai understood. "I will definitely not go in." Qin Mu walked out of the courtyard and jumped onto the dragon Chilin's back. Turning his head back to the room Emperor Yangfeng was in, he thought to himself, "It's fine if Li Qianxing understands the language of Yudu, but if he doesn't recognize it and tries to barge in, his soul will be pulled into Yudu and belong to Earth Count. Granny will also be free then." Emperor Yangfeng felt much better, and he could already move around with difficulty. However, he strictly kept to Qin Mu's words and never left the room. When it was lunch, Granny Sai would use a bamboo pole to send a basket into the room. Emperor Yangfeng would squat down and open the door slightly, taking the basket in. When he was done eating, he would place the basket back at the door, never going out at all. Ever since he had become the emperor, it was the first time he was feeling so sullen. After dinner, he suddenly heard melodious giggling from the other side of the door. The sound seemed to penetrate into the depths of his brains, and it was indescribably pleasant to hear. Emperor Yangfeng was entranced and felt that none of the 3,000 beauties in his palace had such a voice that could send a man's heart racing. Since Cult Master Qin isn't around, then I shall play around with the emperor. If I'm happy, I might just skin him to make clothing and go to the capital city to become the female emperor. Emperor Yangfeng was fearful of the words, yet he found the voice pleasant, messing up his heart. He wanted to open the door to take a look at the appearance of this woman, but then he remembered Qin Mu's words and thought to himself, "This is Cult Master Li Qianxing using the devil voice to lure me out. That old devil is actually mimicking the voice of a woman, truly shameless." He blocked his ears, but that charming voice seemed to have already latched onto his brain, making it hard for him to forget it. Humph, that rascal actually dared to test me. Truly not knowing the immensity of heaven and earth. Although, I really don't recognize these words. We have both cultivated Saturn's sovereign's Earth Marquis true technique. And I don't believe I'm inferior to him. The woman outside the door tried to solve the marvel of the words on the door and practiced Earth Marquis' true technique over and over again, yet saw no success. Without noticing it, she had used up quite a lot of time, and Emperor Yangfeng had also finally fallen asleep after being anxious for a whole night. When the next day came, it was the same as the previous day. And when night came, that woman came back to solve the meaning of the words on the door while Emperor Yangfeng almost grew a devil in his heart from her voice alone. He kept hearing a sweet and charming voice calling him to open the door to take a look. When the third night came, that woman grumbled angrily, I can cultivate it into understanding nor can I solve it. Why should I give up? If I can just barge in and kill the emperor to strip his skin, why do I still have to solve some puzzle? Emperor Yangfeng became alarmed, but then the woman said, no, no. When Cult Master Qin used this technique, a third eye appeared and the room suddenly turned dim while the light turned green. It didn't look like the human world. There's something strange about this door. It might lead to another world if I go through it. The brat is very crafty, he must be thinking of scheming something. Emperor Yangfeng was astonished. This woman is clever. No, it should Cult Master Li, who is a wily old fox. However, isn't Cult Master Li an old man? Why does he have to imitate a female voice, which is so charming? He couldn't resist wanting to peek and thought to himself. Just a glance won't harm me, right? Just as he was about to peek through the slit in the window, a dragon roar came from outside. Qin Mu walked in with great strides and made him drop the thought of peeking. Cult Master Li didn't go through the door. Could you not know the words on the gate? Do you admit you have cultivated great educational heavenly devil scriptures wrongly? What's your problem? The meaning of the words on the door is Gate of Heaven influence. I'll teach you. When he finished saying that, he taught this Yudu phrase to Li Qianxing and said, Cult Master Li, now you that have learned it, you can go through the door. Cult Master Li chuckled. I have learned this Yudu phrase and understood the meaning of the words on the door, but does that mean I will be safe after going through? Cult Master Qin, I'm also the Cult Master Sacred Teacher, and a crafty person, you can't trick me. Qin Mu shook his head and walked up. He walked through the door and scraped the words on the door off with his vital qi before telling Emperor Yangfeng, Your Majesty, I have gone to a few cities to buy herbs, but since all kinds of disasters had befallen people, there were few herbs in the medicine shops. I could only buy a few herbs and I don't know how effective they will be. Minister Qin, just do what you can, said Emperor Yangfeng. Did Minister Qin hear any news after going out this time? Your Majesty has died. Qin Mu looked at him and said, neither too fast nor too slow. News from the capital city say that Your Majesty overworked yourself by handling political affairs and died in the process. The Crown Prince is currently preparing for your funeral and the entire empire is grieving. Emperor Yangfeng was slightly shook, then said with a smile that was not a smile, I have already died. Truly my good son, good son. What about General of Heavenly Strategies and the rest? Are they still alive? While preparing the herbs to refine spirit pills, Qin Mu said, in that battle outside Bazhu City, the people of my heavenly saint cult only focused on saving the emperor. So they had teleported away after you left. General of Heavenly Strategies, High Official, Sichu, Sikong, and the rest were all captured. Dao Master and Rulai did not do anything to them, just handed them over to the Crown Prince. They are the heads of influential families that have great power in the capital city, so Your Majesty doesn't need to worry about their safety. The Crown Prince still requires the support of those influential families. My good son, Emperor Yangfeng sighed. The power that General of Heavenly Strategies and the rest wielded was great. They held over half of the capital's power, along with its military and many other levels of society. If the Crown Prince wanted to ascend to the throne, he required their support. The empire can't go on without a ruler, so the Crown Prince's ascension should be set on the first half of the third month. 6th of the third month is an auspicious date, so the Crown Prince should be ascending to the throne then. With the support of Dao sect and Great Thunderclap Monastery, him becoming the emperor is firmly set in place. Whoever dares to object will be eradicated with their whole family. Where's Imperial Preceptor? I wouldn't have fallen into such plight if he was around. Imperial Preceptor has gone out on a honeymoon and there's still no news of him. When I went out this time, I also met quite a number of scouts searching for traces of your majesty. I heard that the Crown Prince ordered to find your body even if you're dead. Qin Mu executed phantom illusion technique and tunneled into the Emperor's divine treasures. In Spirit Embryo Divine Treasure, he used the medicinal energy of the spirit pills, but even though it dissolved, the Spirit Embryo Divine Treasure wasn't repaired. The effects of the medicine were minimal. Qin Mu frowned and changed a few kinds of spirit pills, but all of their effects were similarly minimal. He then transformed into a black shadow and flew out of the heart of Emperor Yanfeng's brows. He revealed his true form as he landed on the ground and paced to and fro. Suddenly, he said, "Your Majesty, your injuries are hard to treat. I can treat the ones on your body and even your soul, but I can't deal with those on your divine treasures. However, my grandpa apothecary should be able to treat you. Is your Majesty willing to follow me to Great Ruins?" Hope was renewed in Emperor Yanfeng's heart. "This apothecary is..." Qin Mu hesitated for a moment before saying honestly, "Jade Face Poison King." Emperor Yanfeng's complexion turned black, and he said angrily, "Jade Face Poison King." He was the emperor and Empress Dowager was his mother. However, Jade Face Poison King had an unclear relationship with her, and before Apothecary's true identity was revealed, he was known as Jade Face Playboy that had lovers all around the world. Even reputable nuns had unclear relationships with him. Emperor Yanfeng naturally knew about this, but it wasn't convenient for him to say anything. He had once ordered people to assassinate Jade Face Poison King, to get rid of Empress Dowager's gigolo. Part of the reason why Grandpa, Apothecary, was forced to hide in Great Ruins was due to his efforts. He was absolutely unwilling to meet Jade Face Poison King. "Minister Qin, I'm not going to Great Ruins. My unfilial son is ascending to the throne and spoiling the reform I had worked on for the past 200 years. I can't let this foundation be destroyed in a day," Emperor Yanfeng said solemnly. "We shall go to the capital city." Qin Mu's heart trembled slightly, and he took a glance at him. "Your Majesty is sure you want to go to the capital city?" Emperor Yanfeng nodded. "The capital city is where the dragon veins gather, and my Ling family's 9 dragons monarch technique can cultivate twice as fast there. I just might be able to borrow the chi of the 9 dragons to reconstruct my divine treasures. The blood and sweat of Imperial Preceptor, and I can't be allowed to go to waste. As long as I return to the capital city, I can depose my unfilial son." Qin Mu pondered it for a moment, then smiled. "Pardon me." He took out a pig slaughtering knife and stripped the emperor of his crown and yellow robe. Emperor Yanfeng's face changed drastically. "Minister Qin, what are you doing?" Qin Mu pressed down on his head, and the pig slaughtering knife went scraping. After some time, Emperor Yanfeng's head was bald, without a strand of hair remaining. Qin Mu then took a few sticks of incense and lighted them up before pressing them down onto Emperor Yanfeng's scalp. He was in pain as his scalp sizzled from being burnt, forming scabs. Qin Mu sized him up and smiled. "Excellent. Now, you still need a set of Buddhist robes and grass shoes, as well as prayer beads. Your beard also needs to be shaved." After he had said that, he pushed the emperor down and cleanly shaved his beard off. Emperor Yanfeng was furious, but he couldn't retaliate. After a moment, he was fresh and cool. He was dressed up into a yellow robe of an eminent monk, and the emperor that naturally exuded dignity and power was gone. Qin Mu then fetched a brush and adjusted the color of the ink before painting on Emperor Yanfeng's face. The man wanted to retaliate, but his movements were immediately sealed. He could only stand there stoically and let Qin Mu do whatever he wanted. Once Qin Mu was done painting, he fetched a mirror and placed it in front of him with a smile. "Does your Majesty still recognize yourself?" Emperor Yanfeng looked at the person in the mirror and saw a middle-aged monk. There was a scar that stretches all the way from his left eye to his nose bridge, passing by his right cheek and all the way to the bottom of his left ear. He gave people the feel of a fiendishly ill monk that ate vegetarian food and prayed to Buddha during his free time while committing murder and arson when he wasn't feeling well. Qin Mu took off his knife sheaths and placed them on Emperor Yanfeng's back. Emperor Yanfeng grunted and collapsed to the ground. He couldn't move and cried out, "Bones, my bones are cracking. Take them away quickly, I can't breathe." "Oh, I've forgotten your Majesty's cultivation is crippled and your body isn't like before." Qin Mu immediately took the 2 pig slaughtering knives off, and took a plank from outside. He carved 2 wooden knives and painted them with metallic paint, making a clear distinction between black and white. He then made 2 knife sheaths and the 2 wooden pig slaughtering knives on Emperor Yanfeng's back. Qin Mu sized him up and smiled. "Your Majesty can now leave with me." Emperor Yanfeng pulled out the 2 wooden knives and said angrily, "Minister Qin, how dare you make a fool out of me? I want to execute you. Stretch your head out." Qin Mu stretched his head out with a smile. "Your Majesty, please." Emperor Yanfeng ruthlessly chopped at his neck twice, and started panting in exhaustion. Qin Mu then passed his own pig slaughter knife over and said, "Your Majesty can use a real knife." Emperor Yanfeng's hands grabbed onto the handle of the knife, but he couldn't raise it up no matter what. He threw the knife on the ground in anger and said angrily, "I'll note it down for now. Let us go." Qin Mu bade farewell to Granny Sai and brought the emperor to walk while the dragon Qilin followed behind. Qin Mu taught Emperor Yanfeng spirit creation technique from great educational heavenly devil scriptures, before imparting his overlord body 3 elixir technique to him. Cultivate these 2 techniques together as you walk. It'll strengthen your body at the minimum, while it can also be beneficial to your injuries. Emperor Yanfeng was skeptical, and tried to cultivate his overlord body 3 elixir technique and spirit creation technique. His complexion turned for the better and he smiled. "This technique is good, to actually be able to cultivate while walking. I feel that my strength has recovered. Cultivate it first then. When you achieve small attainment, the injuries on your body will heal and your physique will become stronger. I will then teach your ghost creation technique to cultivate your soul, so it could stabilize. We can then use medicine to treat the soul and attack one problem from 2 angles at the same time. By that time, the injuries on your soul will completely recover." Qin Mu was suddenly lost in thought. Now that I taught the techniques of great educational heavenly devil scriptures to the emperor, should he join our heavenly saint cult? If so, what position should I give him? He took a glance at Emperor Yanfeng while harboring evil designs. "I am still lacking a heavenly king. If I could make the emperor join us and become the heavenly king of heavenly saint cult, the entire eternal peace empire would become our heavenly saint cults." Emperor Yanfeng trained hard, and his body became stronger. He managed to cultivate some vital qi, but without divine treasures, there was simply a limit to his cultivation. Qin Mu also cultivated at a leisurely pace. When he executed Overlord Body 3 elixir technique, 5 beams of light shone down from the sky. Those were the 5 elements in his body connecting with the stars of the 5 elements, drawing the star power to raise his cultivation. Emperor Yanfeng was slightly stunned. He's still on 5 elements realm. He always thought that Qin Mu was already a divine arts practitioner of 6 directions realm. After all, Qin Mu's abilities were already on par with people of that level. His cultivation was also no inferior to divine arts practitioners of 6 directions realm, so he didn't think that Qin Mu would still be on 5 elements realm. Great educational heavenly devil scriptures of heavenly devil cult are truly extraordinary, Emperor Yanfeng exclaimed in admiration to himself, but he didn't know that Qin Mu's vital qi had mainly come from Overlord Body 3 elixir technique. The exact same technique Emperor Yanfeng was currently cultivating. Qin Mu's cultivation had indeed reached the peak of 5 elements realm, and wasn't far from 6 directions realm. He was just waiting for the 5 elements star sovereigns to stabilize first before trying to break through. The 2 of them walked for 4 days and spent their nights in the open. When they reached the next city, Qin Mu brought Emperor Yanfeng inside and bought some herbs. It was the first time Emperor Yanfeng had suffered so much in his life. Both of his feet were filled with blisters and abrasions. In the inn, Qin Mu placed him in a wooden tub to soak in medicinal water for a night. The emperor fell asleep in the wooden tub. When he woke up the next morning, he discovered that the blisters on his feet had all vanished and his body had become much lighter. He clicked his tongue in wonder. The two of them continued on their way, and came to the boundary of Prey Prefecture. There, they could see many divine arts practitioners chasing after the villagers, whipping and scolding them. This land belongs to our Prey Mountain sect. Those divine art practitioners were most likely disciples of Prey Mountain sect, and what they cultivated was lightning skills. They could control a formation to strike everywhere with lightning, so they herded the villagers into one spot. The Emperor has ordered to reinstate the system of our ancestors, so the land of sects will belong to sects. From now on, there's no need to provide for the Empire, only give offerings to Prey Mountain sect. A villager was unwilling to accept this, and was struck to death by a bolt of lightning just as he started to argue. Qin Mu stopped and observed, frowning slightly. Emperor Yangfeng had a black face and said coldly, to go against the tide. They passed by other prefectures, and saw the power of sects returning like ashes taking flame once more. They were seizing territories and plundering the rich. As they split the territories, more chaos was added to the already chaotic lands. The snow disaster had already caused major damage. Thus, the addition of sects making a comeback and seizing territories, catching commoners to be their farming slaves was adding oil to the fire. The authorities everywhere that had been sending disaster relief had also stopped. The numbers of people who were starving and freezing to death escalated to the point that they could not be counted. Emperor Yangfeng was solemn and worked even harder to cultivate, trying to repair his divine treasures and regain his cultivation. When they came to Harmony Prefecture, Qin Mu came to the city lord's manor, and the magistrate of Harmony Prefecture came to welcome him. He took a glance at Emperor Yangfeng, but didn't recognize him. His gaze landed on Qin Mu and said, "Cult Master. Talk inside." Qin Mu walked into the manor, allowing the dragon Chilean find a place to rest. When he heard the emperor's stomach rumble in hunger, he said, "Clean clothes hall master, give this senior brother a bowl of rice to eat." The magistrate of Harmony Prefecture was the clean clothes hall master of Heavenly Saint Cult, and was called Duan Mujing. He waved his hand so a servant would bring the emperor to eat. With a smile, he asked, "Why is Cult Master bringing along an eminent monk?" Qin Mu didn't explain and instead asked, "What's the situation in the capital?" "Not too good," said Duan Mujing. "Most of the Taoists and monks from Tao sect and Great Thunderclap Monastery have gone to the capital. Tao Master and Rulai passed down their decree to confer the Crown Prince as peaceful emperor, who would ascend to the throne on the 6th of the 3rd month. At the moment, there are still scouts of the Crown Prince wandering about, executing anyone who looks like the emperor." Qin Mu nodded quietly. This was close to what he had expected. Duan Mujing continued, "Also, now that the Crown Prince is ruling the empire, he has gained a lot of power. Most of the influential families have been taken under the wing by Buddhists and Taoists. Some of the influential families in the capital have already changed sides, while monks and Taoists stayed in others and refused to leave. These influential families don't dare to fall out with them, so they can only let them stay. The current capital city can be said to belong to the people of all trades, with crooks mixed in with the honest folk. It could be said to no longer be under the rule of the emperor. The Crown Prince had also issued a decree to reinstate the system set by the ancestors, returning the lands that once belonged to the sects back to them. The other territories will belong to eternal peace. Also, Duan Mujing hesitated, then said, "An envoy came from Wolfstore country to talk about the war at the borders and make peace with the Crown Prince. He ceded 16 prefectures to Wolfstore country. An envoy also came from Barbarian Di Empire, and they are discussing ceding lands as compensation. It's really easy to squander the family fortune." Qin Mu smiled. This Crown Prince is too stupid and cowardly to be an emperor. Duan Mujing was somewhat puzzled. Qin Mu showed no signs of being angry. On the contrary, he acted like there was nothing wrong. He didn't know that, however, that Qin Mu had never treated himself as a citizen of Eternal Peace Empire. From the start until now, he was always a person abandoned by the gods of great ruins, so there was no need for him to be angry. Ascension on the 6th of the 3rd month, truly an auspicious date that's suitable for murder. Qin Mu asked, "Have you found any news regarding Imperial Preceptor?" "We have found him." Qin Mu's spirit was aroused, and he fetched a few slips of paper. "Hall Master, prepare the herbs written on these slips of paper, and store them in Venerate Prefecture City." Duan Mu Jing acknowledged the command. Qin Mu called Emperor Yang Feng and the dragon Qilin over. "Let us leave the city." Emperor Yang Feng said in a panic, "I still haven't eaten to my fill." Qin Mu smiled. "I'll bring you to see Imperial Preceptor, and get some food on the way." Emperor Yang Feng immediately placed the steamed bun down, and his expression became solemn. He followed silently behind the youth. After a moment, he said, "I would like to ask him where exactly he had gone these days." Qin Mu immediately brought him on the back of the dragon Qilin, then leaped up to stand on the head of the dragon Qilin himself. The dragon Qilin stepped on the fire clouds and sprinted through the sky. Cold wind welcomed Emperor Yang Feng in the face, making him sneeze continuously. Blazing flames suddenly ignited around Qin Mu's body, and Emperor Yang Feng felt much better. The dragon Qilin sprinted for 2 days, before Qin Mu signaled this strange beast to descend. They were in the mountains that were piping hot. There were multicolored lights shining in the valley, but the steam evaporated as they traveled up. God's ray. Emperor Yang Feng has a grim expression as he sniffed the air and said, "Blood scent. There's blood of a god in the valley." Qin Mu brought him into a village, and there was indeed a blood lake there. Beside it was a small wooden house, behind which was a small river. The river water was slightly warm from being boiled by the god's blood, and a woman wearing snow-white sable fur stood beside the river. Her stomach was slightly bulging. Beside her feet was a middle-aged man, who was holding a wooden club and smacking clothes on a stone board. Beside him was a bamboo basket with washed clothes. Qin Mu jumped down from the back of the dragon Qilin, and Emperor Yang Feng followed after him. However, his legs weren't steady, and he went sprawling on the floor. The couple heard the sound and turned around to have a look. Qin Mu had a smile on his face as he went forward. "Couldn't you have helped me up?" Emperor Yang Feng got to his feet and hurried forward. The middle-aged man placed his wooden club down and wiped his damp hands on his shirt. He stood up beside the woman and smiled at Qin Mu and the emperor, who was walking over with a pale face. Imperial Preceptor. Emperor Yanfeng's footsteps became faster, and just as he was about to criticize Imperial Preceptor, he suddenly noticed blood stains on Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor's chest. His complexion wasn't good as well. The emperor was greatly shaken and shed tears. "My Imperial Preceptor, how did you land in such a state?" Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor welcomed the emperor, and noticed that he had lost all his cultivation. He was equally sorrowful in his heart. "How is it any different from your majesty?" The woman immediately said, "You are also injured, don't throw your mental state in disorder." Qin Mu was stunned. The 2 strongest practitioners of Eternal Peace Empire were actually both severely injured. Heavenly Saint Cult Master pays his respects to Imperial Preceptor's wife. Qin Mu greeted the woman. Imperial Preceptor's wife saw the emperor's bald head and was bewildered. She immediately said, "Don't just stand there, come into the house to have a seat." "After I left Little Jade Capital, I wanted to investigate the origin of the natural disaster, and met a god who was holding a bottle gourd in his hand," Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor said indifferently in the small wooden house. "The natural disaster was released from his bottle gourd. He got injured in our fight, but my injuries are more severe. With my wife being pregnant, we decided to stay here for a period of time." He had said it so simply, but one could imagine how fierce that battle must have been. Emperor Yang Feng checked the injuries on his body and looked at Qin Mu with inquiry. Qin Mu examined the man and shook his head. "The injuries left behind by a god contain the will of a god inside, so I can't cure the root of the injuries. If you want to cure the root, I will have to return to the village and request Grandpa Apothecary's help." Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor said, "I knew you couldn't cure the root of the problem, so I didn't go and find you. My injuries now are too severe, so I can't return to the capital city, otherwise, I would surely die. I can't let others know I'm injured. But I never expected your majesty to." The two middle-aged men looked each other in the eyes and suddenly laughed out loud in unison. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor laughed until he started coughing endlessly. Emperor Yangfeng looked outside and asked, "The blood lake outside?" Left behind by that god, he was very strong and suffered some superficial wounds. The injuries on Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor's chest opened up again, and Qin Mu applied some dragon's saliva on him. But just as the wound was healed, it was once again torn apart by the remnant of the divine art the god had hidden in the wound. This kind of injury could no longer be cured by medicinal stones. Even if it were spirit pills that could allow a person to come back to life, they still wouldn't be able to remove the remnant of the god's divine art. Qin Mu pondered for a moment and took out a sword pellet that Mute had gifted him. He executed it gently, and sword lights appeared. Qin Mu pushed them forward, stabbing them around Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor's wound. Imperial Preceptor's wife gave a low gasp, while Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor and Emperor Yangfeng didn't move at all. Qin Mu stretched his index finger out, and dense vital qi swelled like a cloud at the tip of his finger. When he gently tapped the sword pellet, a whoosh sounded, and a sword light shot out from the sword pellet, piercing through the house and into the blood lake. Boom! The blood lake trembled violently and exploded with a world-shaking bang. After 3 booms, the sword light from the sword pellet was shattered by the tremors and became smaller. Divine Physician's miraculous hands are truly ingenious. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor sighed with admiration. To actually use the power of the god's blood to counter the remnant of the god's divine art. Qin Mu applied the dragon's saliva once more, and the wound no longer bled. He said, "I can't guide the other divine arts in your body out. Your Majesty, Imperial Preceptor, there are 2 paths now. The first will be me bringing you guys to Great Ruins to treat your injuries, while the second is to head to the capital. You guys can choose what you want to do." Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor looked at Emperor Yangfeng, and they seemed to know each other's thoughts as they said in unison, "The capital." Qin Mu pulled out his pig-slaughtering knife, and pressed Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor's head on the table. Imperial Preceptor's wife cried out in astonishment, "Cult Master Qin, what are you doing?" Emperor Yangfeng rubbed his bald head and said, "Madam, you will know when you look at me." Qin Mu's hands were nimble, and he shaved Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor bald in a blink of an eye. He then took a few sticks of incense to burn a few scabs on his head. He then took out a yellow Buddhist robe from his Dao Tai sack, with the ease of a routine. With a smile, he said, "I had made an extra set which for Imperial Preceptor. Please wait a minute, let me draw a green birthmark on half of Imperial Preceptor's face." After he was done with Imperial Preceptor, he turned to Imperial Preceptor's wife. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor immediately said, "Cult Master, my wife is pregnant. In such a freezing weather, if she has no hair. In that case, she shall be a Daoist nun." Qin Mu took out a Daoist robe, and handed it over to the woman. He then suddenly blinked and smiled at them all. "That's right, do the 3 of you want to enter my cult? My heavenly saint cult feeds well, and if you have no skills, we can teach you handicrafts to make a living. I assure you guys won't starve to death with us." This video will end here.